Where did I learn to support my transgender child? I learned it from my parents, my grandparents, my aunts, and my uncles, and in the community where I grew up.
I was born and raised in Wyoming, where rugged individualism is the norm. Growing up, an oft-repeated phrase by my mom and grandma was, "In Wyoming, you can do your own thing, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else."
In the fall of 1998, I was living in Colorado and pregnant with my firstborn child, Kat, when my mom called me and told me that Matthew Shepard had been brutally beaten to death in an anti-gay hate crime.
Matthew was from our hometown of Casper and a student at the University of Wyoming, my alma mater. As my mom told me some of the horrific details, she just kept repeating that familiar phrase from my childhood, saying that Matthew had not been hurting anyone.
A few weeks later, on October 16th, Matthew's funeral was held at the Red Brick Episcopal Church that he and his family had attended and where I had gone to preschool. Almost 1,000 family, church, and community members attended Matthew's funeral.
When they heard that some of out-of-town anti-gay protesters from the Westboro Baptist Church were going to gather across the street, they made large homemade angel wings to protect the family and friends attending Matt's funeral from the protesters' terrible signs.
After the service, my mom called me and told me how proud she was of those angel wings. And she repeated that Matt had not been hurting anyone. And she celebrated how the people of Casper and Wyoming protected Matt and his family at the funeral because she said that was the Wyoming thing to do.
16 years later, I was at my office in Brighton, Colorado, when I received a text from Kat saying, "Mom, there's something I need to talk to you about after school."
I remember feeling not surprised or anxious by that text, but relieved. Kat's dad and I had known for a long time that Kat was not happy. In fact, we had been in family therapy as well as supporting Kat with individual therapy on and off for months. So rather than waiting till after school, I immediately rearranged my schedule, drove to high school, and signed Kat out of class. I then drove Kat to a nearby Chili's to talk.
We squeezed into a booth and ate in silence together for a long while. Finally, Kat pulled out a pen, wrote 3 words on a napkin, and pushed it in my direction. The note said, "I am transgender."
Next, Kat asked me if I knew what that meant. I said that I did. However, the truth was my understanding of what it meant to be transgender was lacking in any real-life experience.
Then Kat said, "I'm a girl, not a boy. I'm a girl."
Looking back, what strikes me most now is how scared my child was to say those 3 words out loud to me.
When I talked to her about this years later, Kat said she was afraid to tell me because she had read online about parents disowning and deserting their children when they came out as trans.
Even though I had a lot to learn, I knew that was never going to happen. That my baby girl was never going to happen.
What choice did I have when my daughter came out? Did it reflect badly on me that my child is transgender? That is what some claim.
But what if the mere fact that she told me represents our bond as mother and child? What if she was giving me a gift, the gift of sharing her true self?
And what if she hadn't, couldn't, or wouldn't have shared with me? Kat recently told me that she finally came out to me because she was so sad and depressed that she felt there was nothing to lose. And if it didn't work out, she was going to commit suicide.
Thank God she didn't do that. Thank God. I am so grateful that she let me in. I am so grateful that she trusted me enough to really see her, because Kat is my daughter. A daughter. That is who she truly is.
Unfortunately, for many transgender children and young adults, if they do not find support, suicide is too often a reality.
So to other parents, I say, Take a chance. Step up for your child. Embrace them. Support them. Because the other choice might mean not having them in this world at all.
Soon after our daughter came out, her dad, Kat, and I began seeking medical professionals who were experts in gender-affirming care and having thoughtful discussions about the best way to support Kat and free her from the gender dysphoria that we finally understood was overwhelming her.
For those of you that don't know, gender dysphoria is a painful experience of your physical body not matching your sense of self.
This mismatch can be profound, and it often includes feelings of anxiety, depression, and isolation, especially when the person feels unaccepted by others.
Some people like to gleefully point out that it is listed in that big book of mental illnesses, also known as the DSM-5. And then they like to use that big book to beat transgender people and their parents over the head.
But put aside that book for a minute, and let me give you a glimpse of gender dysphoria from my point of view as the parent of a woman who is transgender.
Gender dysphoria is seeing your child so disgusted with herself that she refuses to leave her room, refuses to attend family events, to go to school, and even to take a shower to avoid seeing a body that doesn't represent her. Gender dysphoria for my daughter was so bad, so persistent, and so pervasive that even now it blocks out other memories of her childhood. And yet, despite the agony of her dysphoria, Kat was so scared of being rejected that she hid her true gender. For years, she lived balanced on a knife's edge between debilitating dysphoria and the fear of not being accepted.
One of the first steps in alleviating Kat's dysphoria was beginning hormone blockers. Hormone blockers pause the development of secondary sexual characteristics that begin in puberty.
For Kat, that they interrupted the development of male features and the facial hair that was intensifying her dysphoria. It was life-saving.
Studies show that access to hormone blockers lowers the rate of moderate to severe depression by 60% and lowers the odds of a person self-harming and having suicidal thoughts by 73%.
Do you hear that? 73% lower odds of suicidal thoughts and self-harm. As I said, life-saving.
Hormone blockers buy kids, like my daughter, and parents, like me, time to interrupt the dysphoria, and they are totally reversible. It is cruel to keep these blockers from families with transgender kids when they can be the difference between life or death for a child.
When Kat was about 17, after a year and a half on hormone blockers and many more consultations, doctors finally gave her permission to start her medical transition with female hormones.
And then in her late 20s, well into adulthood, she chose to have 2 feminization surgeries.
It has been so amazing, baby girl, to see you blossom into your true gender. After so many years of suffering, to see her happy in her body, to see her excitement after voice lessons when someone in an online forum easily identifies her as female, to celebrate her euphoria after gender transition surgery, and to see her abundant, thriving, and exuberance at being fully herself.
The woman Kat is, almost 12 years after she first came out to me, is wonderful. She's truly blossomed in transition, walking through the world confident, caring, smart, and funny.
Despite my great joy for my daughter, I am saddened and dismayed as a Wyoming native that my home state is throwing aside its rugged individualism for an us against them mob mentality.
For example, they passed a bathroom bill which allegedly protects girls and women, but in reality makes using public restrooms more dangerous for anyone who doesn't fit gender norms, especially transgender people.
And now Matthew Shepard's remains rest not in his hometown of Casper with family and friends, but 20 years after his death, his family chose to inter them at the National Episcopal Cathedral in Washington, D.C., to protect them from desecration.
Even in Colorado, my adopted state and my daughter's home state, outside big money has gotten 2 deadly anti-transgender measures on the 2026 ballot.
One that would deprive transgender kids of the joy of playing sports with their classmates.
And another ballot measure that is touted as preventing gender reassignment surgery on minors, which is almost never, ever happens. But in reality, it would prevent young people from even accessing mental health professionals, as well as the totally reversible hormone blockers that freed my daughter from the knife's edge.
I hope that by hearing my and Kat's story, that Wyomingites and Coloradoans and all who value rugged individualism and freedom will come to understand, as I do, that standing up for transgender rights is not only the Wyoming way,
It is the true Colorado way,
the American way.
the only way.
Everyone, it is time to cowboy up. Say it with me. Cowboy up! Cowboy up! Cowboy up! Thank you.